Welcome to episode 25. This episode is From Anxious to Self-Confident, my story of overcoming social anxiety on my mental wellness journey. I'm pretty excited that we are a quarter of the way to 100 episodes. Listen to this episode for the details about how I have battled my personal obstacles with social anxiety, mental wellness, physical health, and more. From panic attacks and missing out on life to living life more fully and vibrantly each day. I'm Carla Hunt, CEO and founder of Prioritizing Peace and the host of the Unapologetically Prioritizing Peace podcast. My story is sprinkled in some of the other podcast episodes here and there, but I specifically mentioned briefly a little bit of my story in episode 21 when I talk about my mom's story of overcoming such severe depression that she couldn't see color for 10 years and how she is now living her best life. I mentioned in that episode that when I was in grade school, I did the trial study for a social anxiety medication, which is on the market and is used for things such as social anxiety, anxiety, and depression. When I was diagnosed for social anxiety disorder, I did the trial study for this and was in the control group and actually got the medication. I was getting ready to go into middle school and had exponentially gained 100 pounds. And they kept saying that medicine doesn't make you gain weight, and it clearly does. It was a nurse practitioner who finally stepped in and confirmed medicine can make you gain weight and helped me get a different doctor who put me on something else going into middle school that stabilized my weight. But by then, the damage had already been done. I was twice the size of my peers. There are specific kinds of doctors whose expertise is to prescribe medication for a diagnosis, and that's how they make their money. Their job is not to prescribe a treatment plan through the use of counseling or hypnosis, which oftentimes, depending on what you are being seen for, counseling and hypnosis is a much better suited to address the root cause of the symptoms. I do believe in medication, and I think it is a helpful tool, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of people like myself who were being over-medicated for something that could have been holistically treated with things as simple as new coping skills. I feel that taking the medication gave me a lot more obstacles to later overcome, such as health issues for being morbidly obese, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. All of this started because I was a shy kid in grade school with a little bit of learned anxiety, which did not get better with medication. It only got worse. As I mentioned, I was in middle school twice the size of my peers. I had a middle school teacher who said middle school was a hormonal quarantine because that's when people start going through puberty, and they quote quarantine us for the 3 years before high school for us to figure ourselves out and figure out our identities. We're figuring out where we fit in the world. And in my experience, this is the time where hierarchies are formed, and it's the popular versus the unpopular, when a lot of bullying occurs, and this is when they become really mean and awful to each other. Obviously, I was bullied for being twice the size of my peers. I changed the way that I dressed because I was bullied. I stopped wearing shorts and short sleeved shirts because someone had told me the stretch marks on the back of my legs looked gross and my arms were too fat. I was made fun of for having clothes from a plus size clothing store that my church at the time was so kind and generous enough to donate the money so that I had clothes that fit that year. I could no longer fit in the girls section or even the teen section. I had to wear adult women's plus size clothing when I was 10 going on 11. I stopped wearing the nice clothes that fit because I was told I was dressed like the teacher. I had to adapt to survive in my environment. I changed how I dressed from 6th grade going into 7th grade. I wore clothes that were plain, that were the opposite of the things that I was being bullied for, so that in essence, I was invisible. At one point in time, I had the audacity to wear the sweatpants from back in the day, you know, the ones with the words on the butt. The problem is I didn't have a butt. Unfortunately, I had a gut. So you see, middle school broke my spirit. And I got bullied for other things besides clothes. I got bullied for being poor, for my hair, my teeth. They were not straight back then. I got braces in 8th grade. I got made fun of mostly for being fat and not being popular, whatever that meant at the time. In episode 5, titled Why Perfection is an Illusion, I mentioned how I used to be a wallflower. I didn't want to be remembered, known, or seen. All I wanted was to fit in somewhere and not make any kind of disturbance. I was a quiet observer, even on social media. I very rarely engaged or posted. I aimed to be invisible as much as possible so that I couldn't be judged or bullied. Anyway, middle school was terrible, but I made it through. And like I said, experiencing more anxiety, depression, lower self-confidence, lower self-esteem from being bullied. High school was a lot better because people were doing their own thing, more concerned with navigating classes and after school activities. I think we were all a lot more worried about what we needed to do to go to college at this point. Most people didn't have the time to be bullies, and if they did, I think they just eventually dropped out. Honestly, I couldn't tell you what changed other than I took advanced placement classes, and everyone in those classes was focused on college. High school was doable for me for the most part, despite the acne, braces, and still being morbidly obese. I appreciate all the friendships I had during middle school and high school. I recognize looking back that I lacked the social skills necessary to maintain relationships with people. I would bottle up my feelings, and sometimes they would spill out onto others in anger because I didn't know how to set boundaries or say, hey, that hurt my feelings. I would ultimately just push people away instead of communicating with them. I mentioned in the episode 11 titled, What is Toxic Masculinity? That I was taught growing up that it was not okay to cry or be emotional. So all of my emotions and feelings, regardless of what they were, came out channeled through a filter of anger. This repression of feelings was hurting my relationships along with the lack of social skills. I eventually learned to process emotions, to allow emotions to flow through me instead of letting them sit repressed within me. I often do this by having a good cry. In terms of things that were repressed that I needed to let go, that were causing the deep-rooted low self-esteem, low self-confidence, anxiety, and depression symptoms that required more than just a good cry, I realized I needed help with releasing these issues. The problems that I had were not problems because they could be solved by taking action. The thing about taking action is that I knew that the longer I waited, the harder it would be, just like working out, starting a diet, or starting anything new. It's harder the longer you wait because you're resisting it, whether it be your mental health, your physical health, or your emotional health. It continues to decline the longer you wait to address it. So finally, I decided a couple of years before I applied to grad school to go on my mental wellness journey. The medication I was on wasn't helping, and I kept thinking if I had just been taught coping skills instead of given this medication, how my life would be different. We all know we can't change the past, but we hold the future in our hands. I ultimately stopped taking the medication. I was tired of repeating the same old patterns of pushing people away, having panic attacks, feeling anxious, depressed, and not feeling enough all the time, as well as being tired of being overweight. I wanted more out of life itself, and I also wanted to help others too. So I registered to go to grad school to get my master's in social work. After I had already gotten my bachelor's in political science, psychology, and I minored in criminal justice. I was not sure where my path was going to go with all of my degrees. I just knew I wanted to help people. The other thing that I knew was that I had to be the best version of myself in order to help people. This meant that I needed to work on myself. I needed to be going to counseling if I wanted to counsel other people. I had to make sure that if I was going to be helping others, I had to be willing to do it myself. I feel you can't preach something that you're not willing to practice yourself. Besides, if you were anything like me, you are the type of person that would figuratively, or for our service members listening, literally go to war for the people that you love most. Why wouldn't you be one of those people? Figuratively speaking, I made up my mind to go to war with all of the things that were mentally holding me back. I had decided that I was going to face my own stuff and walk through it, that the only way out was through. I had gone on a mission to try all the different therapies. You name it, I probably tried it on my mental wellness journey. I wanted to try all the different healing modalities and counseling for not only the learning experience and practice, but also to heal myself. Like I said, if you're not willing to deal with your own stuff, how can you preach that to someone else? I've done couples counseling when I wanted a better relationship with my partner at the time. I've also done family therapy when I wanted a better relationship with my mom, as well as modalities such as CBT, EFT, EMDR, and RODBT. And as I kept continuing on my mental wellness journey, I still felt like there was things missing, and I did different online programs looking for it. What really stuck out to me most was when I did an online program that included subconscious reprogramming, because that was the program that was the most effective for me, that allowed me to really change my behaviors, habits, and my ways of being. From this program, I was introduced to hypnosis further to do one-on-one hypnosis or subconscious reprogramming. And I really felt like hypnosis fast tracked all of the things I had already been doing in the past, all of the several years worth of talk therapies and counseling within just a few weeks for me. I don't want to discount all of the work I had put in beforehand because it did help. People who are into personal development and are on a healing journey like myself make the best hypnosis clients because there's a lot less stuff to work through when you go to make those long-lasting changes on the subconscious level. Hypnosis removed the limiting beliefs, unproductive coping mechanisms, and negative emotions that were on the subconscious level that I couldn't reach through talk therapy or counseling alone. That was what I really needed to remove the roadblocks that I felt I had been hitting in order to get to the next level I wanted in life. Had I not done hypnosis, I would not be here speaking to you right now. I wouldn't have the confidence to do it. And that's why I feel really passionate about talking to you about my mental wellness journey, because it changed my life. I probably spent a year's salary or more on counseling and talk therapies. They were extremely helpful to get me started on my journey and taught me a lot of skills, social skills, and coping mechanisms that I need, but there was still all of that stuff that were under the surface on that inner work that I needed to remove the old negative emotions, the deep-rooted, unproductive coping mechanisms, and limiting beliefs on the subconscious level. Through my mental wellness journey overall, I've lost more than 100 pounds that I originally gained going from grade school into middle school. I'm no longer the wallflower, just merely surviving in hopes that I won't be noticed. I'm no longer missing out on fun activities with friends because I'm overthinking it so badly that I have a panic attack. I'm no longer feeling depressed about what other people think about me because I love myself. I'm here taking up space, and I'm talking to you so that you know that hypnosis can change your life like it did for me. I feel it's a never-ending growth journey because you should always be growing and evolving, but you should have a really solid foundation for your growth that is by removing the obstacles out of your way. That is what I want to help you do. Long story short, it's doing the inner work. I have combined all of my education and experiences to offer subconscious reprogramming or hypnosis sessions infused with mental wellness coaching so that you get the unique transformative experience of making long-lasting changes at the subconscious level, as well as gaining the skills related to what you are wanting to resolve. I can help you holistically heal negative thoughts, unproductive coping mechanisms, and limiting beliefs through subconscious reprogramming so that you can experience consistent inner peace, increased happiness, and increased confidence. Use the link below to sign up for a free discovery call to see how we can work together to remove the mental obstacles preventing you from living your best life. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next episode, and in the meantime, check out some of Season 1's classic episodes.